Hello and welcome to another Six Sages Gaming set review. Today we're going to be talking about Earth, and let me tell you, this spotlight is going to rock your world. So let's get right into it. Up first we have Dark Knight, which is a 4K, 4-drop 5K that can get bigger. So I like this card because as we're going through this entire set review, you have to keep in mind Earth has a very strong shift towards mono element in this set. So is it going to be good enough? That is yet to be determined, but I do like the number of options overall that the deck has gained. So keep that in mind as we're going through these. Otherwise, this is just a good late game unit, so maybe you only want to run one or two of them. Keeping in mind, it's pretty easy to get to, let's say, 4 points of damage. So this becomes a 4-drop 9K and then only gets better from there. So not much to write home about for this card itself. However, how it combines with the other cards in the set are worth at least taking a moment to mention it. So we'll cover that a little bit more in detail when we get to it. Then up next we have Warrior of Antiquity. I can't even talk. Antiquity. There we go, folks. It's too early for this. It's a mannequin, so we have the mannequin vibe going on. For each point of damage you receive, gains plus 1,000 power. So again, same thing that we saw with the last card, keeping in mind it's a common, so we can have multiple of these in play at a time. Unfortunately, if you have 6 points of damage, it does break, so it doesn't get up to 11. However, it still gets up to a 3-drop 10K potentially, and that is perfectly fine. So again, not great by itself, but something to keep in mind as we're going through these spoilers. Ingus, I believe is how you pronounce it, enters the field, play 1 job, standard unit of cost 2 or less from your hand onto the field. I'm not that excited about it. It is a 4-drop 8K, so its power is on par. I think this is one of those cards that just gets better as the game goes on. We get more standard units, and it is a Warrior Light, which is worth noting for the Light and Dark cards that we're going to talk about later. But ultimately, a 2-drop into play, not the greatest. As a cute thing, you can play Mime off this, for example. There might be a better 2-drop, I'm just forgetting off the top of my head, which can then party attack with this, draw you a card. So it does have some cute possibilities. Off the top of my head, it doesn't have a lot of things going for it. So we will see. Now, and I realized that as I was going through this, we should probably put more of these together like this. So we have Vanille. And as I had mentioned, this entire set, for whatever reason, was all about putting things onto the field for free, which the mechanic itself can be a pretty busted effect. However, there's only 2 of them off the top of my head that I would actually play. One of them is in water and one of them is in lightning, which we'll talk about when we get to them. So Vanille is a 6-drop 8K, which hurts a bit, but you do get to put a 4-cost. Now it does have to be Earth, so again, very strong into that mono element direction. Put a cost of 4 less from your hand on the field. Now the difficult thing here is that this does compete with the other Vanille, which I personally just like better because it can chump block for days for us. It's an 8K, and we just get value out of it by having in the deck. Now playing this one, there might be some 4-drops later on that are worth playing. The cute thing here is that I mentioned on the right, you can go Vanille and Ignis into a 2-drop of your choice. But ultimately, I think one of the best things that you're going to be doing off this card specifically is going to be playing Vincent. Now, Vincent on the left there is a 4-drop 8K, which we'll talk about a little bit more when we get to him himself, but that's probably the best you're going to be doing with this. So it leaves a little bit to be desired, but again, anytime that we see a card like this that says, hey, get to do this crazy thing for free, you have to keep an eye on it as the game grows. So this is one of those cards I'm just going to keep in my back pocket and say, I definitely see potential for it. Right now, I'm a little bit underwhelmed by it, but I could see it moving in that direction. So I think I'd rather just play the other Vanille for now in a mono Earth deck, which we'll talk about when we get to a couple cards. But I could see this one seeing play. Ah, yes, Vincent himself. So this is, at the time of this recording, at least, it is the most expensive legendary from the set, this and Renoa. And it's certainly one of the most powerful ones. He cannot be broken by opposing summons or abilities that don't deal damage, so he is Odin-proof, for example. But what's really interesting and causing a lot of commotion is the death penalty effect. Now, choose as many forwards as you want with a total cost of 7 or less and break them. Cheeky to note, if for whatever reason you need to, it says as many forwards, so you can break your own forwards, again, for whatever reason if you might need to. But it costs 5, which is a lot. And of course, you have to discard another Vincent for the effect. Now, we did get another Vincent in this in the set plus the promo. So there's going to be more than enough Vincents to use the ability, but it is very, very costly. That said, given that this is most likely going to be going in a control type of deck anyways, you're going to have those 5 resources available. And what I most likely would see people doing is tapping 3 backups, discarding a card, and then discarding a Vincent. And that's probably going to be fine for what you want to do. Personally, I'm not going to be playing with Earth control off the bat, but I will be doing a mono Earth deck, and this is 1000% a mandatory in those more mono element or mono Earth element decks, to be specific. We can play Enacross, I believe is the backup's name, which then we can make this a 4-drop 9k, which is wonderful. So if you're like me and very excited for the mono element decks, absolutely pick up 3 Vincent, put them in the deck. That should be literally the very first card you're writing, and then the next card should be the plus 1000 to all your Earth backups. Outside of that, I could see this card going either way. Again, I do think that this card requires you to have a bit of work in that direction, but I think the payoff is going to be worth it overall. But we will see. Now, Vincent I'm not as excited about is the 4-drop 9k, which is great. So anytime that we have an above power to cost ratio, it's like, all right, there has to be some form of drawback here. And there is. Whenever he attacks or blocks, you have to pay 2. If you don't, the attack or the block doesn't deal any damage. So he breaks as well, if that wasn't bad enough. Or obviously that is rather the bad part. I was stuck on the next part. So we have to pay 2 or he breaks is what this is saying. What's neat about it, though, is that when he attacks or blocks, choose a forward and deal it 4,000 damage. Now, we could use this card potentially to break off some of the lower units our opponent might have, but ultimately, I don't see this Vincent making a slot over, say, the promo Vincent, which has Limit Break, which we made another video on that, and I hate the term Limit Break, but it has another special, so it offers more utility in that. So again, 4-drop 9k can be fine, but I do see this card costing you a lot of resources as the game goes on. Now that said, if you're playing a more aggressive deck, this is probably just fine as a curve topper, so to speak. So I'm not in love with the card, but I could see it making some play in some deck, but ultimately I'm going to give it a pass for now. Yay, or me. What a guy. So this is part of a 3-card combo, as this card itself references with Logos and LeBlanc. It can gain 2,000 power, or those 2 cards gain 2,000 power, and those cards buff him as well. So it does set up this great 3-card combo. Now, again, that is going to be kind of difficult to get them all on board together. However, by itself, this is a 2-drop 5k, and if we're playing the Earth backup, it's a 2-drop 6k, which, based on some other cards we've seen, is probably just fine enough. Now, the downside to this is that it doesn't have an S, so drawing multiple of these can be pretty bad, but what it does for your other 2 cards that it references is bloody amazing, really. So, again, there's going to be this mono Earth element deck, and I could 100% see those seeing play. Now, again, outside of that, don't bother. I would not play this in a million years. But one of the legends that we're going to talk about is going to make this playable in those types of decks. So there's, I believe, 3 Vincent, there's like 6 or 7 cards from Opus 2 alone that say, here is your mono element deck, and it's going to be a beast. So I look forward to it. We are probably going to start with a bunch of mono element brews on the channel. So definitely expect to see more from good old Orme after these set reviews. Now, look at this cute little guy. I'm sorry, I just want to like rub his belly. Carbuncle, which happened to be one of my favorite summons from the series as is. Choose one summon targeting a character you control, cancel its effect. Now, that is absurd. So if your opponent tries to play like a 7-cost Odin and you cancel it with Carbuncle, that's going to feel great. But ultimately, it's just an insurance policy if they have, say, they have Odin, they want to bounce your main guy, or Leviathan, they want to bounce your main guy, or Odin to break it. Carbuncle can save you from that. So Earth is going to have a lot of really great summons, and again, that's why I keep stressing I really like this mono Earth deck that can come out of this set. And there's a summon that, or there's a 4 that really helps utilize our summons. So if they're if they're not being used in a certain matchup, like Carbuncle is not going to be good in every matchup, don't get me wrong. But there's a 4 that allows us to discard the extras for value outside of obviously making 2 Earth Crystal points that make me really, really excited about this combination. So Carbuncle, I think, has a spot in the meta. If we ever had sideboards in this game for whatever reason, then absolutely this is a 3 of in every sideboard ever. Sure, but we don't have sideboards yet, so he might not be seeing much play for now outside those mono element decks. Here he is, good old Gabby. So this is a card that gets me very, very excited for mono earth. Now, keeping in mind there was, I think, 2 or 3 cards in the Japan release of the game that said you had to take 8 points of damage to lose the game. So whenever we get those types of cards, I would absolutely love to see something like this see play. So 7-drop 9k, that's a little bit alarming, I understand, but the cost to replay him onto the field is reduced by 1 for each point of damage you've received. So again, most of the time we're going to be playing this for 5, 4, sometimes 3-drop 9k. That's pretty spicy. But it's a second part that really gets me excited. If you've received 6 points of damage or more, keep that or more in mind, the Earth Forge you control gain Brave. Now, again, we reviewed this card very early on when there wasn't a lot of spoilers for Earth in itself. And now we're really starting to get this theme where, like, all right, we have all those Dark Knights. We have the Mannequin that we'd want to use. That becomes huge when it has Brave. Of course, that one does break at that point, but there's some other standard units we can use. And this deck shapes up to just say, you know what? We're going to try to play this control game. You've got me to 6 points of damage, and now I have all these 9 and 10Ks with Brave that you have to answer. Of course, if your opponent has like Zidane or something, or Zemus to make it unblockable, we have to have answers to those cards. So I understand there's always going to be answers to this type of deck. However, being able to give your entire team Brave when they're already 8, 9, 10, 11Ks even is just so strong. Now, again, the same downside that he has is he's obviously unique because he's a named character, but he doesn't have an S. So I really wish we would have been able to see an S. I don't know what it would have been, honestly, but for how good this card is, I mean, it's something that you automatically could run 2 of. I could even see running 3 of just for how good it is in those mono element decks. But unfortunately, unless you are playing that very self-pained type of deck, and you can run Fiosa, or how you pronounce it, the light backup that deals 7k to something and deals the damage to yourself. You can play this own damage type of game that helps you get to 6 while removing your opponents forward. So I am really excited for this card. It is something that obviously only gets better as we get more Earth Forwards that we'd want to play with anyways. But again, giving my entire team Brave, that is very, very strong effect. So can you imagine giving Legendary Vincent Brave, goes to attack, then uses death penalty on something? Oh yeah, I want to play that deck. All right, so that's enough of gushing over him. 2-drop Ranger, it's a backup. Choose one attacking forward, it gains plus 1,000 power. This is cute because it doesn't break itself, unlike Monk. However, I think there's a lot of other 2-drop backups that we already want to be playing that have utility with them. So I'm not sure that the plus 1,000 power is really going to make the cut here. There's some other 2-drops that will, even within this set, that we'll talk about. But if you are playing the more aggressive types of builds and you just want early backup that can give you that plus 1,000 power to punish your opponent for blocking, then absolutely sign me up for 3 copies of this. So this plus Monk can really help push some more aggressive strategies. But for right now, for at least the decks that I have in mind that I want to build, I'm not too crazy about it. Now, a card I am wonderfully excited about is Machinist, and this is a card, again, it's great to have these early drops that have utility for the late game. Now, the cost is expensive, I get that, do not mistake me for a second. Having to pay 4 and break it to choose a doll 4 of cost 4 less and break it of your opponents is a bit costly. However, it's a standard unit, so we can have 3 of them in our back row if we want to. We don't get punished for drawing extra of them, and they can just break something of our opponents. And when we have, sure, we have things like Mustadio and Vincent. We do have a couple other breaking types of effects, but Machinist really puts us in a sweet spot that, yes, again, it has to be dulled, I understand that, but it's a 2-drop. We play it early. It's going to generate us resource throughout the course of the game, and I mean, 4 or less, that kills so many things in this game. There's not going to be a point in time where this is going to be, just an all-out dead card against a specific type of deck. Now, if your opponent is playing, unblockable, hexproof the deck or what have you, I could see that being an issue. But ultimately, in terms of a meta perspective, this is just going to be a very, very versatile card. So yes, the only thing possibly holding this back is the cost, which I think is kind of fair considering what it does, and it's a 2-drop. So I love this card. I could see it as a 3 of. I'm probably just going to run it as a 2 of because I'm mostly going to be using it for the break effect in those types of decks. But I think this could be fine as a 3 of, and I would not be surprised if this sees a large splash on both the mono element decks and the 2 color decks that we're going to be seeing. Now we have Logos. Now, keeping in mind that this also buffs, so Ormi and Logos buff each other. So we have a 3-drop 9k. Now again, if we think about Gabby that we just talked about, Gabranth, we're talking about a 3-drop 9k now that has Brave. Not bad, not bad. I'll take this. And then of course LeBlanc, which we'll talk about right at the end, is also going to be getting buffed from this card. So this is a trio that can just wall off your opponent completely. But LeBlanc does some interesting stuff, and otherwise this is just a copy of Ormi, so we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this one. Scarmelone? That's terrible, I'm sure. And there was a lot of hype around this card. It's one of the more expensive hero cards in the set, and I still really love this card. So back attack, for those that played Magic, it's mostly Flash, but it's the closest thing that we'll have in Final Fantasy. But it's a 2-drop 5k, which is fine for the stats. Now, considering it has that back attack, I could have even seen it being a 4k, honestly, considering how strong that is. They obviously just couldn't make it a 2-drop 6k. But the thing to note here is that it blocks Zidane all day, every day. It is blocking a lot of those types of cards that your opponent might not be expecting. So I think this is ultimately going to be a little bit more playable in those control type of decks where you have Golem, you can buff them up then to a 9k, and it allows you to play this game where you can use your resources as you want to, and you can then leave up and play this draw go type of game, really is what it is, which has always been strong in every trading card game ever. So I definitely expect to see this continue in being hyped up in playability. In what decks that we're going to see it in is yet to be seen, but absolutely is going to be seeing play in some deck. He's so cute, little sorbet. Choose a blocking forward for each job. Moogle control gains plus 1,000 power till end of the turn. So you have to play this in a 2-color deck. And I'm just not excited for the Moogles. The only ones I really am like gushing over, and maybe I just have to play around with the element combinations a little bit more to see which way they go. But I really do like Nono, the wind one, and I like Gertie, I believe is the name, from Lightning, because it reduces power. And yes, there is an argument to be made here that reducing power and giving plus 2k power in this case can kind of do the same thing, but you have to keep in mind that Gertie does help get around things like Minwu and those type of power protection types of things. So in my opinion, at least, if we're looking at plussing or minusing, I believe that minusing is always going to be the better one of the two, until we get a card that references plus power specifically, which there could be one. I just might be drawing a blank on it. But ultimately, not that excited for this card. Again, could be wrong based on what element combinations we see, but I'll leave that until we get to more deck building time. All right, now I know there's a lot of people out there that got super excited for the 2-drop Belias Fire Summon, but I am super excited for Hashmal. This card just basically turns on all the tribal type of decks. So like standard unit becomes insane. You can do mannequin becomes insane. You can make things that aren't mannequins become mannequins and then get plus 2k power in total, because it gets plus 1,000 from this and plus 1,000 from X Death. Yes, I'm a little bit biased in that I love tribal decks, and I will play them in bloody every chance I get in every TCG ever. And when this card was spoiled, I'm like, all right, this is awesome. All forwards gain plus 1,000 power in the named job or element. And the cute thing to keep in here is that it's gaining, not replacing. So if they have other buffs from other things, they're also going to have those. So Yeah, I am so excited for this card. And not that Earth needed more summons to kind of compete with themselves. Yes, they're going to go in different decks. I do get that. But with this set, Earth has certainly got a huge boost in summons that are going to see play. And this is a 1-drop. This is a possibly super punishing summon for a 1-drop. So I'm very excited for this. I absolutely think this card is going to see play. It's going to only get better as more units and jobs and classes and all that good stuff comes out. So in the ninja deck, in the standard unit deck, in the mannequin deck, I mean, we can just go on as more cards come out. So yes, sign me up. I love this card, and I think it's absolutely going to see play. Then we have Gamnon, 2-drop 5k. Cannot deal damage to your opponent, but he must block. Your opponent must block it if possible. So we just talked about all these cards that can buff your units or make it where you can use Golem, you can use Monk on defense. And I do like this card that it has lure, if you will. So your opponent has to block with something. However, there is a lot of 2-card combos that you then have to put with it. So it's a very strong effect. I'm just not convinced that there's enough golems or monks or other pump effects to really make it worth it. That said, I could easily see someone abusing this card and doing some wonderful combat tricks with it. Speaking of the other monk that we talked about, and this does combo with fairly well the card that we just talked about, put in the break zone, cost 2, which is a bit expensive for what we've seen, but you give something plus 3,000 power and brave until end of the turn. So again, very strong effect for what it is. It's a 2-drop, so it can come down early. Giving something brave is always great. And then 3,000 power is, whoo, there's a lot of power to give something. We usually see +1 or +2. +3 is definitely on the higher end. So again, in the more aggressive decks that either just want a combat trick or just be able to push for some damage, Monk absolutely is coming in to fill that slot. So this will be very interesting to see, because again, there's so many 2-drops now that Earth can utilize, and maybe we just play 6 different 2-drop backups and just play this really low to the ground game. Obviously a bit unlikely, but there are a number of effects that give boosts now within Earth. So I'm excited to see which direction that this card goes into. Yang for each card Monk or Job Monk other than Yang you control gains plus 1,000 power if the power of Yang is 10,000 or more, so 2 cards gains Brave. Now again, this plays into that mono element deck that we had just talked about. Giving him Brave is not going to be hard. You can just play a number of monks, and also giving him Brave is going to be great because he's just going to sit there and just be able to keep hitting your opponent. Again, I don't think there's enough monks right now for what you'd want to be putting into that deck per se, but I definitely see Yang going up in playability as more sets come out. Then we have Baby Yang. If you control a card named Monk or Job Monk other than him, gains plus 2k power and Brave. Now this just says 1, so this is the card between the two that if I was going to bank on one of them being played right away, I'm definitely going to be putting my money on this one because it only requires you to have one other monk, and it becomes a 2-drop 7k with Brave. Then with the backup that we are most certainly going to be playing, it's a 2-drop 8k with Brave. Yas. Absolutely yas. And that is just a very powerful card that your opponent has to deal with. And again, if they're putting in 4 or 5 resources to then try to chump block him, all the value to us. So I'm very excited to be playing this Yang, and I'm going to have to go back and look at what all the different monks are again, but absolutely, possible, realistically, a very easy turn 3 8k for 2. So, all right, we're in it. Now, another card that a lot of people are excited about for the Mannequin deck is the Phantasmal Kefka, really, the Harlequin here. Choose a Mannequin, gets plus 2,000 power. When it is put from the field in the break zone this turn, you do have to break all the cards named Phantasmal Harlequin you control. Now, the interesting thing to note here is that it just taps for the effect. So, and there's a ton of Dissidia characters that we have not seen yet as mannequins, so I would not be surprised if in Opus 3 we get even more mannequins. But this is a card that you can have multiple of and then just pump your mannequin by 6k and damn well make it impossible for your opponent to break it outside of, say, an Odin or something. So these just get to stay in field. So in terms of if we're going to have a mannequin deck and what do we want to be playing, and this is a 2-drop backup, Yes, absolutely. This is just something you jam 3 of into that deck. You boost your mannequins as much as you can, and give them this free combat trick, which, as we saw, Monk or either of the monks that have a cost or you have to break them to put them in the field, it makes you think that, all right, mannequins have to be something that we respect because this is a very cheap backup that's extremely powerful and annoying to deal with. Raban, this is an EX card that I'm very excited about that not a lot of people are talking about. When he enters the field, choose 1/4 you control and 1/4 the opponent controls. The first one deals the second damage equal to its power. So a couple interesting things to note here. The source of the damage is coming from the 4 that you select itself. So it's not coming from his EX burst or his ability. Now, keeping in mind that the second card also doesn't fight back. And this just instantly reminds me of a card from Kaijudo that we had that said, pick 2 cards, they fight. And it was a card that saw a lot of play. Now it is a little bit different here that this is a 4-drop backup with an EX burst, so you can only have one of these backups in play at a time. But chances are you're going to have something on the field, especially if you're in Earth. So keep in mind, let's just use Delita for example. Oh, what's that? Not only can Delita break the extra copies of this as we need them, but Delita's a 9k and he's going to kill pretty much anything on your opponent's side. Now again, the only way that they're really going to have to save this is, say, bouncing the card or destroying Odin. Obviously, if it's an EX burst and you can't respond to it, but it is fairly limited what your opponent is going to have to be able to answer this, and it's going to be able to punish them for thinking that they're safe, because normally if your opponent wants to save a 4, they just don't attack with it. And yeah, there's not a lot of ways to interact with it, and now we finally have this. Yeah, I could very well see this being a 3 of in those Earth types of control decks. So you're going to see me playing 3 of this. I love this card. I think for what Earth has and for the power level that Earth has, that this is almost never going to be bad for what you want to be doing. So yeah, sign me up. I love this card, and I think it's only going to get better as Earth has more of these kind of low-costed, high-power cards. So absolutely love this card. Finally, I forgot how far down Rydia was in the spoiler here. Now, this is a card that I am so stoked for. Gaia's Wrath deals 7,000 damage to forwards of all elements except Earth. So again, we're creating this card that says, damn it, run mono Earth, and you have a 7k to everything effect, which 7k, again, keeping in mind, just about kills everything that your opponent's going to be having. It's a great answer to a gold bez that's been broken. There is a lot of things that this card can do, and it's only a 3-drop 7k. So keeping in mind, we're going to be playing the Earth backup, so now it's a 3-drop 8k. But what's really interesting that I talked about when we had Carbuncle, you may use her special ability by discarding an Earth summon instead of discarding a card named Rydia as part of the cost. So in some situations, we'd be stuck waiting for a special card. And now we're going to play, just off the top of my head, we're going to be playing the Bike spell for Vanille. We'll play 3 of those. We'll play 3 Golems because it's a great card on attacking and defense. And then we'll throw in 3 Carbuncles because why the hell not? Now suddenly we have 9 cards that we can toss to this effect. Yes, we still have to pay 3 Earth. It is what it is. But having that open versatility and the more options you can have to use the effect is so strong. And again, there's going to be some matches where Carbuncle is going to go from the best card ever that's going to save you the game multiple times to this is absolutely a dead card. And then Rydia comes in and says, hey, I know you're holding on to that Carbuncle. Just ship it this way. You know, we'll take care of that for you. And that's going to be strictly better than just discarding it for 2 crystal points, which you still have the option to do. So in terms of sleeper heroes and what this wants to be doing, I definitely think that this is going to be, this is taking the cake for me. Now, the thing to note here is that we don't have to play this in a mono element deck. We could be playing a deck that, let's just use the obvious one that comes to my mind. We could be playing an Earth Wind deck where the wind is just for support. And then you can use something like Dancer backup that deals 1,000 damage to all forwards. So between the 2 of those, you're dealing 8k to everything on your opponent's field, which, again, more often than not, is going to damn well board wipe them. So this is a card that has not been getting any hype whatsoever. And maybe it's just because people are stuck on the dealing 7k to some of their own forwards. But again, we can run a 2-element deck that doesn't have a lot of, or if any other element forwards, and we've seen this before in the Ice Fire deck. Those decks have run just all ice cards and then uses pretty much Bahamut and then land, which, sure, that's a Nambo in this case, but it is, we can build around that or work around that. It is going to be an amazing card. So again, I would not be surprised at all if this card just starts seeing play everywhere. Again, I love it in both support decks. I love it, absolutely love it in those mono earth decks. And this is the card that I was talking about that said there's been this strong push towards monocolored decks. I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm excited to see that finally. And this is the card that really pushes it over the edge. So I'm excited. I think I've gushed about this card enough. I'll ship a pack of sleeves from Ultimate Guard to whoever tops the first decent. So 40 plus players, we'll just use as a kind of toss out number out there. If you top a top 8 an event with Rydia in your list, I will ship you a pack of Ultimate Guard sleeves. So there you go. There's a little extra incentive, but I firmly believe that this is just an amazing card. So whoever does it first, kudos to you. Then we have the EX Burst. Rydia enters the field, choose one Earth Summon from your break zone, add it to your hand. So again, this is fine because we want to run a couple of these. We could just reuse summons. Why not? That's amazing for Golem. Titan 2 obviously gets some love out of this. It's an EX burst, so it can happen for free, and it's an S effect that we can use on Baby Rydia as well. Now, I really wish they would have switched around the artwork because I'm probably going to be using the other one over this one, and I like this artwork a lot better for obvious reasons. It's not just a little chibi character. It is what it is. We're going to have both in the deck at least, and I do think that the 3-drop, basically 8K, will be seeing play. And then lastly, we do have LeBlanc, which... yeah, so it's a 4-drop 8K. That's fine. It has Brave. That is perfectly fine as well. So it's basically a 4-drop 9K with the backup that we're going to be using. Put one card Ormi or Logos into the break zone. It cannot be broken this turn. So again, if you remember my complaint about Ormi and Logos was that they didn't have an S effect, well, this is pretty much the next best thing. So you're going to tell me that I have this 9K Brave attacker that's going to be getting a point of damage every turn. I can just sacrifice one of these other 2 idiots off to make sure she can't be broken this turn? Yes, absolutely. And what I like about this, again, is it says or, so thank heavens it doesn't say both. So it puts you in this position where you can run 3 of the cards, not feel bad about it, put it on the field. You can attack with the other one if you want to, assuming that's going to get 3 points of damage, and then attack with her, break the other one that you just attacked with because, yay, value, and then she can't be broken. So in terms of other heroes, obviously, besides the fact that I gushed over Rydia, which, yeah, all things considered, I do like more, I am super excited for this card for what it does. And again, it has Brave already, which is fantastic. But then keeping in mind that we're going to be playing Gabrinth as well, which is going to give all 3 of these, the trio, if you will, give them all Brave as well. And they're all, I think, 8Ks after being buffed, if I'm not mistaken, 8 or 9Ks. So they're beefy. They're absolutely beefy on their own right. Yes, this is going to be seeing play in those more mono Earth element decks. Of course, now if someone can get that working, we'll see. But I would not be surprised at all if it... is going to be seeing some serious play. So that is all. Let's crush this and get to the top 4 here. So again, top picks from every card. None of these should be any surprise. Legend Vincent. Now again, I did pick this because overall I think Vincent is just a lot easier to put into those decks. It's just more versatile, where Gabrinth is just play mono earth and it's going to be fine. Hero Rydia dealing 7,000 damage to everything is fantastic, but also the fact that you can pitch extra summons is worth not looking over. Very strong, super excited. For the rare, we have Hashmal. This one was a little bit trickier because, again, I might be a little bit biased with the fact that it's a very tribal-focused card. So, yeah, what it does in those decks is just absolutely insane. Then for Common Machinus, because being able to break your opponent's stuff is fantastic. And it's a 2-drop backup that's going to pay for itself before breaking itself, and it's going to be great. So that is all I have for Earth today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. We have just a few more videos to go, and then we will be having Opus 2 proper content for you next week. We're going to finish up the set reviews, get it out of the way, and then be looking towards deck spotlights and dual series yet again. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoy these set reviews, and we will catch you on the next 6 Sages Gaming video. Have a good one.